Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some of what I find to be the worst or most uncomfortable love scenes in books. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Apologies if you hear Luna, my dog, eating. She just was fed. But anyway, jumping into it, I'm going to start with Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. So my friend Jess from the channel Jess Owens does not like the romantic scene in Ali Hazelwood's other very popular book, which would be The Love Hypothesis. To me, the one in this book, there's a certain part that I found to just, it's my own fault. The way I read it and where my brain went, I just couldn't get the image that popped up in my brain out of my head, and then I just found that scene kind of funny and not romantic whatsoever. Or I mean, is romance the right word for this scene? I don't know. Anyway, so it's fitting that my dog is currently eating her food because the image that popped into my head in regards to the scene has to do with dogs. So I'm going to try my best to explain this scene in a slightly PG fashion so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about. But if, goodness forbid, ever one of my former students, because I used to teach, finds this video, I will not be mortified. So I'm going to try to describe this in a PG fashion. So there's a guy and a girl. There's a man and a woman. And they engage in adult activities. And by that I mean the guy stands there while the girl engages in adult activities involving something of his, right? You get what I'm saying. And so she's doing that to him, and that's fine. That's not the part that's weird. That's pretty standard, pretty known that people do that. But it's after the fireworks go off. He grabs her, sorry, I'm like, I used to teach. This is, I hope no one sees this. So he grabs her jaw, her chin, and he's like, let me see it. And I just couldn't not think of, for any of you that also have pets, when your dog, it's usually dogs, I don't know, I've never had a cat, maybe cats do this too, but when your dog grabs something that they're not supposed to grab, like that moment where you drop, like a piece of chocolate or something, because like the dog's not supposed to have chocolate, and you drop it, and then you see it on the floor, and then you see your dog see it, and you're like, no, and you go to get it, but they pounce on it, and then you're like, no, 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 and they're like scuttling away, and you're like, get back here, no, 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 spit that out, and you grab the dog, like you're like trying to get them to open their mouth, and you're trying to pry their cute little mouth open so that you can get whatever it is they've got that they shouldn't have. Sometimes it's something really gross, but you're just like, no, 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 don't, and you're trying, and it's just like the jaws of death. Like, they do not want to open their mouth at all, and you're like, no, come on, I don't want you to die, please. And just that is how I ended up picturing that moment, where I just am like, it's like a dog. It's like you do that to a dog who it's eating something it's not supposed to. And I could not get that image out of my head, and I was like, all right with that scene, I guess. Super, super steamy. Now Luna is drinking water, so she's just providing all of the sound effects for this video. Anyway, the next one, maybe some of you would be like, ooh, that actually sounds really nice. I don't know. But the next one would be From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So it's a scene where they're kind of out in the middle of the wilderness, and there are other people around, and the main love interest is kind of snuggled up against her. They have a blanket or sleeping bag or whatever, and he's kind of feeling her up and touching her, and in her mind she's like, oh, but there's people. And I think she even says it. It's been a while since I've read it, but she like tells him, like, there's people. And he's like, and? Kind of. And I'm like, yeah, there's people. This is weird. There's people around. Anybody can see you. And it's just, I know that not everybody watches comedians, and I know that comedians can be very controversial figures, but there's a comedian named Tom Segura, and he has this bit about this woman touching herself in public, and how instead of the security guard for this place doing something about it, the security guard tells this like nice little hostess, like, hey, I don't want to deal with that, you deal with it. And the girl like taps on her shoulder and she's like, excuse me, everybody can see you. And that is what I thought of in that scene. And this is just, I'm recognizing that a lot of this is probably my fault, because I just end up maybe visualizing the wrong thing in these moments. So I feel like it's on me. But not when literally you're like, it's open. It's not like there's doors that we've closed or something. I just feel like that would be so awkward and so uncomfortable, which is kind of the whole point of this video. This is intentionally uncomfortable, but I had to mention it because I almost feel like it deserves a round of applause for how well it accomplished how uncomfortable it is. And that would be Joe Abercrombie's First Law trilogy. There is a scene between two characters, and the way it's written is just like one noise after the next that the characters are making. And I fortunately was not listening to the audiobook during that moment. And everybody knows Stephen Pacey is known for being one of the absolute most phenomenal audiobook narrators that is out there. And he gives so much life and so much passion, and he just brings these characters he really just brings them to life so well. And I have heard from people that is such an awkward scene to be listening to. Again, it's intentional. It's not like my brain went a different direction and therefore it became weird for me. It was like it's supposed to be uncomfortable and awkward, and it's hilarious. And I kind of love it. Next up, sticking with the theme that I had from Blood and Ash, we have A Far Wilder Magic. So I guess, okay, there's a scene where what's happening in that moment is not anything strange. It's the characters are getting to know one another in a more intimate fashion, and then one of the characters' parents walks in, and I was like, ugh. Like, it was intentional, I'm sure, to be awkward, kind of like what I was saying about First Law. It's supposed to be like, oh no, like it's breaking the moment apart, right? It's not like, ooh, let's have mom join in or something. It's not meant to, of course, be sexy at all. But oh my gosh, did it accomplish the like, ugh feeling, just where they're on the floor and the mom walks in, they're like scrambling to get up, and you're like, oh goodness, it just you feel like that secondhand, I want to die feeling. Luna left. See, she doesn't even want to do it. I don't know if you heard her go out the doggy door. She can't handle it either. So yeah, that scene though, ugh. And I get that it's supposed to be like a breaking apart the romance sort of a moment, but I'm just like, I don't like it. I don't want anybody walking in the middle of that moment. I just don't, even in a fictional sense. I'm like, just have them decide, like, maybe now's not the right time, and then be like, good thing, because it's that mom. I think my mom's home, or something. Like, have that. Which isn't fair. It's just that I'm one of those people that I love the show Parks and Rec, but those episodes that are the secondhand embarrassment episodes, I don't like it because I feel it so much. And so whenever there's somebody walking in on a steamy scene, I don't like it. It's so uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, this next one, I guess mild spoilers. Well, okay, we'll go ahead and say spoilers for The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. So if you don't even want to hear about who might be with who, then don't listen to this part. I'll have a timestamp that you can skip over. But I am going to mention characters and some of their powers. So, if you want to skip over, feel free. I'm going to get into it now. So in The Well of Ascension, you have Vin and Elend, and clearly we all know Sanderson is not going to go there. He is not going to write a super detailed sexy time scene, but he will imply a sexy time scene. And the implication is that Vin and Elend had romantic time with one another, and they did it with Spook around, and Spook, in case we're all forgetting, one had a crush on Vin. But the part that makes it so uncomfortable is that he has heightened senses. He can hear everything way better than the normal person. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I would be like, Elend, I know I made you wait, buddy, but we gotta wait a little longer because Spook is here. I would not want to be intimate with Elend in that moment. And if I were Elend, maybe Elend was like, see, she's mine. I don't know. Elend doesn't seem like that kind of guy. But when you think about it, if you really think about that moment and the fact that Spook is around, you're like, Spook heard. He heard. And he probably didn't just hear the things that most people might overhear. He probably heard some additional things because that's what his powers allow him to do. And he's really kind of upping his abilities at this point in the story. So I'm just like, oh, no. Next up, this is, I mean, I know I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again, but the phrase from A Game of Fate, which is a Hades and Persephone story, which I didn't really care for any of the saucy scenes because I just thought that's all that book was, basically, so I didn't feel any kind of connection or anything. But the phrasing of he dumped her out of her pants will forever and always live in infamy. It is such a funny way to word that he was undressing her. And at this point, I'm like, is it the worst? I feel like it's kind of the best because I will never forget that. And it's funny to me. It's always funny to me. The last one. So I run a collaborative channel called World Hoppers, and all the AdSense revenue goes to charity. And so if you're interested in checking out World Hoppers, I'll have it linked. But this one, my friends and I just had a good time talking about this scene and whether or not it was uncomfortable or not. So it's kind of like a trilogy. It's a series of standalones, the Brown sisters. One of them, they're all romance stories, and each of them follows a different sister. And one of them, in one of the stories, the sister is living in this, essentially like a bed and breakfast. She has her own room, but it's not a nice, fancy room. It's just like this kind of off to the side space that the person who runs the bed and breakfast has. And it's got an old couch on it, and it's old furniture, and he doesn't really like keep up with that room or whatever, but that's where she's staying. And so she's sleeping on the couch, and she has a certain item that she uses for herself. And that particular item gets shoved between the cushions of the couch. And at one point, when her and the love interest are making out, they're making out on the couch that she's been sleeping on. And it's an old couch. I really want to emphasize, it's an old couch. Even if it wasn't, it said the item is between the couch cushions. You cannot pay me to eat something or put anything in my mouth that has been between the couch cushions of my couch that I vacuum and I clean fairly regularly. And that is what happens. The love interest, they're making out, and he like feels something. He's like, what is this? And that's not exactly how, this is not a super accurate replay of what happens in that scene. But he basically discovers this item of hers, and she's all embarrassed. And then to kind of ease her embarrassment and to keep the sexy times going, he does put that in his own mouth. And I just was like, it was in the couch. It was between the couch cushions. And am I the only one that's like, maybe if it hadn't been between the couch cushions, but it'd been between the couch cushions. So I'm like, no. I would be like, you don't need to do that. Just let me be embarrassed, because this is just icky now. I would be, no way. No, it's not, that was not sexy to me. And I get that it's like the fact that he was willing to do that. I can get what it's implying and everything, like what he's willing to do. But I don't know about you, but I don't think it's sexy, because it's not like I would think most human beings do not have crumbs and dust in that same area. You know what I mean? I'm just like, no, Luna's back. You can sense that I'm wrapping up here, because that was the last one. Anyway, that's it for me for some of my least favorite romantic scenes, love scenes in books. I would love to know what some of your least favorite scenes are in books. Doesn't have to be fantasy. It can, like I mentioned some that are clearly not fantasy. So feel free to mention from any genre what some of your least favorites are. And are you like me, where you feel like sometimes it's your own fault because you just hear a certain phrase or you have a certain image that just isn't supposed to be the thing that you think of, but you kind of can't help it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.